He's never fought us. Not us united.
My favorite moment in the entire... Maybe I should complicate this before I start speaking here.
Welcome to Under Two Capes. I'm Jared, and I'm here with Robert Willing. What's up, dude?
Not too much. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. If you hear any dogs or anything, because I'm at my parents' house at the moment, so they'll be interrupting.
All right. So today we're talking. Robert and I are huge Superman fans. Huge, yeah. So we just figured, all right, let's do an episode where we talk about our favorite Superman stories. So, Robert, you want to start us off? What's like your number one favorite Superman story?
Number one, if I had to pick one, and not counting Doomsday Clock. Doomsday Clock is one of my favorite stories, but as far as a Superman book, it would be Up and Away.
Okay, that's a good one.
That is my favorite. That's one of the ones I still say is one of these. Give it to someone and they'll understand Superman.
Yeah.
Like that.
Mine is actually All-Star because for that reason, because all you have to do if you want someone to understand Superman, just give them that book. And that's
unless they're cynical.
Yeah, that's pretty much distilling it down. Here's why this character is so cool and not boring like the general audience seems to think he is.
Right. Again, unless they're cynical, because I just tried showing it to Joseph Santos from Tristan's site. Didn't work. He's still being cynical about it. Still thinking like, oh, but in real life, it's like, dude, the whole point about Superman, he's not real life.
We're talking about comic books.
Exactly. But unfortunately, this is one of the guys who also will praise. He will praise the Snyderverse, but for the wrong reasons. He's looking at his stuff like, see, look how realistic it is. It's like, you're missing the point.
Yeah. So my another one of my favorites is actually Doomsday Clock because
that is also one of my favorites. That's just not my first.
Yeah. Here's why I love that, because it distills the effect Superman has on the entire DC universe. Because ultimately, the thesis of that story, the reason why Watchmen is the way it is because there's no Superman, there's no symbol of hope.
Yes.
I'm like, that's
the closest thing to hope was Manhattan, but that's not a good symbol of hope.
No. And speaking of Manhattan, Superman restored Manhattan's faith in humanity.
I gotta say, that's the one thing that still bothered me, is that he technically had it at the end of Watchmen, but then he lost it again. It's like, how do you lose it? That was one thing that always bothered me. But that aside, yes, I will agree. He restored his face. But he also is what gave him his curiosity, too, about the world. It made him change things.
Yeah, and then apparently, so he gave him so he essentially took Mime and Marionette's son and made him the Superman of the Watchmen universe.
Or the Watchman, as he's going to be known as soon.
The Watchman, yeah, exactly. And
not one of Jeff John's clever names, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. What about you? What else you got?
Oh, well, obviously, the Death's World Was Out and Return trilogy. The stuff that got me into comics. They're what got me into comics, because I just adored those. And those, the very first books I ever read were a few handful of issues from World Was Out. The Funeral for a Friend. And I'm just like, I love Superman right then and there. Even though he was dead, I still loved him.
Well, yeah, because you also showed the lengths that Superman will go to protect someone. I mean, he will go and die for the human race.
Yep, but what I love best is the behind the scenes details that the whole reason why is, not small, but Lois and Clark caused them to drop the delay of wedding. They're in a bitter, sour mood. And basically, and they're like, there would always be the joke of, let's kill him if they couldn't think of anything. It was a running gag, but finally they were just so salty, like, yeah, let's kill him. And Mike Carlin's like, my favorite phrase hearing it from him, okay, wise guys, if we do it, what happens next?
Yeah.
That particular phrase, okay, wise guys.
Yeah. In other words, let's actually plan this out. It's kind of funny.
It's like Gail Simone says about when you have two people fighting each other. It's not the fight itself. It's what led up to it and what happens after the fight that's important. The fight's just a glorified, slugfest.
True. And plus, another thing I liked about particularly Death of Superman, is the way it counts down, because each issue has progressively less panels until
it's just splash
full
pages.
Splash pages. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. It's such a clever way to do it, which is sad because I don't think a lot of the writers nowadays would be smart enough to do that.
No, they wouldn't. Nor would they have the goal to do it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, well, because we just technically we just killed Superman again in the lead up to Dark Crisis. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. Oh, killed him. Yeah. Another one. And what's another one of your favorites?
All right. What I got is also Injustice. Here's why. Because when you look at the Superman in Injustice, it makes you appreciate
the comics in the first game. I will agree with, not the second game. The second game torpedoes any goodwill by making it clear he was always evil. He just needed an excuse to do it. That pisses me off and tells you why you should always have comic creators involved and not leave it up to the game people.
Wow. So, but
did you know that was it's just the game people who did the second game.
Wow. But it's like the reason why I love that.
Sorry, I had to say that. I had to say that.
Yeah. What it showed is like okay. So the point of Superman, one of the points of Superman that makes him such a compelling character, is that he has the power of a god. He should, by all logic, be ruling us, but he chooses to protect and love us.
Yes.
This shows the complete opposite of that. So we're like, this makes sense now.
Exactly, and the lengths he will go, and that's why I liked, especially under Tom Taylor's pen. After Tom Taylor left, I think it kind of started to spiral a little bit. It became more samey, but for the most part, it's like he's doing his best. He's given horrible advice by Wonder Woman, and Batman is being way too much of a "you shall now kill" to the point where he's saying "you kill parademons." When has Batman ever cared about killing parademons?
First off, Batman kills all the time, and second off, killing parademons, alien.
I know that. I'm sorry. But again, so you're having no wonder Superman got worse. No wonder he got worse.
And also, part of the reason he got worse is because when his wife died and the city died, his best friend was not there to comfort him. Because I'm convinced that if Batman had been there and basically said, "Okay, dude, I know it's dark now. It'll get better." In other words, if he had that comfort from his best friend, I don't think he would have gone evil.
True, but I would say that one moment I still like is Batman. His mind, he wanted to kill Joker just as much. He was just imagining him riding the Batmobile going.
It's going right through him.
But he stopped, but he controlled it. But yeah, that one I like. Another one, you're going to hear a lot of Jeff Johns Superman with me. Last Son.
Jeff Johns, might as well.
Last Son.
Ooh.
I love Last Son. The stuff with Chris Kent and everything. That was a phenomenal story. That was such an incredible. My only downside is that they reverted Clark to back being the milk stop again and having Perry be like, "Why did Lois marry him?" It's like, Perry, you know why Clark and Lois and Clark got married. You love him. But instead he had to make him like the Donner version, which that's the only problem I had with that story. But otherwise, everything was Zod. Amazing Zod. You felt bad for Zod. Especially when you find out that, he was there when Doomsday, when Doomsday almost got released, when and Brainiac. You hear both of those, you're like, no wonder he snapped.
Yeah, exactly.
Ursa and Mon-El, the fact that Jeff Johns brought back so much pre-crisis stuff. Ruby, knock it off.
Yeah, my other favorite is also a Jeff Johns story, Superman's Secret Origin with him and Gary Frank.
Yep.
Which that perfectly distills the Superman origin down into a nice story, a nice short story, and it also shows there are some clear allusions to the Donner movie, which I'm like, okay, that's
catches the helicopter.
Yeah. But I also like how it deals with multiple super villains throughout each chapter. It's like you have Metallo, you have Parasite, you have to a certain extent Lex Luthor, and I like how it bookends because you have the Clark trips into the old lady and she goes, "Watch where you're going."
And at the very end, what does she do then? She's unhappy with the other equally naive farm boy.
Yeah, she goes, "Oh yeah, don't worry, you'll fit in here. We always look up in the sky."
Exactly. I love that. Lex was well handled. So much. If I had to give one flaw to it, I don't wish he said I made a mistake while in the costume. He should have flying in the air. I feel like he should save that when he's at home.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, give me a second.
Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, a part of my reason, dear listeners, because what Jeff Johns was able to do is he also took a lot of the yeah.
She's barking for attention, and then she wants out. I open the door. She don't go out.
Mm-hmm. Another reason I think Secret Origin works is because it takes the Donner origin and like modernizes it to make it so it's not as like, I hesitate to say this, irrelevant by today's standards.
Very true. Very true. And I also, now, the only downside is a lot of this adventure by the end was being stuff that kind of tied into New Krypton. And it's like, ugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Give me a second again. Give me a second again. Sorry, I don't mean to cut off.
All right.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I wasn't a big fan of like the new Krypton stuff, but yeah, it also artfully deals with 3 different like supervillains, because that's kind of something that you kind of have to be very careful of, because you don't want to cram too much into a storyline. So,
oh, sorry, I got autistic brother, so
it's all good. It's all good.
I mean, the good thing you're recording is you can just edit a lot of this out.
Yeah. It's all good. So,
but
what else you got?
Again, Jeff Johns, right? Superman Brainiac.
Ooh,
that's a good one, especially that. I would say that plus the Bizarro World one. Both of those were like Tristan. The reason why Tristan and I did 2 videos straight on those, because it bookend the stuff that Jeff Johns is doing with Paul Kent.
Mm-hmm.
Just reminding us just how important Paul is to Clark. And even though Paul didn't factor that much into the Brainiac one, except for dying,
it
was still important. That whole world's best dad horseshoe and everything. Mm-hmm. But even with Brainiac, the stuff with Supergirl, this helped Supergirl, who had been floundering. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Jeff Loeb gave us a great introduction, and then he gave a big screw you when he decided to introduce the Adam and Eve, and not Adam and Eve, the Cain and Abel stuff. And then and then Joe Kelly didn't help. Joe Kelly's run wasn't bad, but it didn't help. But let's be honest, Supergirl was floundering up until Brainiac and then Sterling Gates taking over.
Yeah.
So that helped. Brainiac, the fact that Jeff Johns did not ignore what came before, like some creators were. He had to be, oh no, the Brainiac you've been dealing with some of this time was a probe that went separated and was acting independently from the real Brainiac. And so again, basically now it's saying all the ones we've seen before since post-crisis, still canon, just not the real Brainiac.
Yeah, that's why I love Jeff Johns, because he takes what came before him and like weaves them together in such a way.
Better than Bendis, who just ignores.
Other than Bendis, who goes, "What other people wrote before me?"
Or even if he does, like he tries to say the whole, "Oh, Lois is aware she's 2 Loises in one." What?
How would she be aware of that?
I don't know. It's like dumb stuff like that. I'm like, how is she aware of that? Unfortunately, then he gave Rucka the marching orders to say, keep that in mind when you do her Maxi series.
Which was a boring series, unfortunately.
I would say that's another thing I can give. Greg Rucka's entire Adventures of Superman run, especially Lois getting shot issue.
Is that the one you would tell me about last time? Yeah.
That I adore just so much about that. I got to show you that issue. Mm-hmm. It is such a good issue. That was a phenomenal one because it's just all this tension. The fact that Superman was, like got there too late, she's shot, and then you have a moment like, for example, Perry's like, Olsen, get over here, but everybody's like, Perry, Lois has been shot. I got to make a phone call. Calls up, and he's calling up Clark, but since Clark is out, it goes right up to the satellite where you have Martian Manhunter using Clark's voice, be like, I hate to tell you this, Clark, but Lois has been shot. Clark, I'm sorry, Perry. I really need to think about that. He's doing Clark, but it's also John taking this in too. Like, crap. And then he calls up the League, and eventually we see Flash show up, but he's in military garb, but he's saluting, but you see the flash ring to indicate it's Flash.
Yeah.
And they get her out of there, but at the very end, you see, like, I'm pretty sure a lot of husbands have been, when their wife's been in the hospital, just standing there, holding her hand, waiting for her to wake up.
Yeah. So, another one This one's a very recent one. Dark Crisis.
Oh,
here's why.
Especially for John.
Yes, exactly. Because and Tristan knows, I've not been a big fan of John Kent for on the Son of Kal-El series. This made me more in favor of John because oh my gosh, and
I would say, issue 6, him standing tall against everyone.
That last stand where he's like, "I hope I made you proud." I'm like, oh,
and then Superman catches Doomsday's
fist. I'm like, yeah, and then they both punch Doomsday. I'm like, yes.
Which you know what that reminded me of?
What?
Infinite Crisis with Earth 2 Superman and Earth 1 Superman stopping Doomsday together.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's another one right there. The Infinite Crisis, I would say, is equal to Dark Crisis in that regard.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, because that whole story too, because it's really John Kent growing into the Superman role, because that's what Superman would do. If there's an absence of the Justice League, he would take it upon himself to form a Justice League. Granted, it's a crappy Justice League.
Dr. Light was a good choice.
Dr. Light was a good choice. I'll give you that. There were some good choices, but the rest of them, because here's the thing. Why do you have Supergirl on the League? Here's why. All you need.
Because it was supposed to be Mary, to be fair.
Yeah, but here's my issue with that. You have Superman and Supergirl on the Justice League. That's all you need.
That's true. But again, if it was Mary, it would have made more sense.
Yes, exactly. But I'm like, Supergirl? You don't need anyone else except her and John.
Yeah, but I did like Killer Frost because I liked her on the Justice League of America book back during New 52. She's proven herself. Harley did not need to be there.
No, I'm like,
the Beatles, both Beatles and Booster. Yeah, come on. And again, I liked how Dr. Light actually said, yes, I'm in. She did not have to hesitate. I'm like, thank you. Someone who understands Kimio better than others.
And I like how Black Adam was like, why do you need 2 blue? He
but like how he's like, and how old are you? And she's like, excuse me? Like, I'm the oldest member here on the team next to you, Adam. Why are you insulting my age? I mean, I know she's a useful mother because she had kids young, but she's not that young.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. But it's just like the whole...
the whole event. And I love also, especially when we made clear, the Great Darkness was not the main villain. It was like an animal. It was an animal that got riled up thanks to Pariah. And you needed Nightwing to be the one like, calm down. There you go. Calm down.
And then just that whole scene where Black Adam shares his power with the entire Justice League. I was like, oh, this is freaking dope.
Yeah, but now, granted, at the end when they say like, oh, people want to think it's the Great Darkness, I don't blame them for thinking that because it's like, it's an animal. It's like because that's what happens. Unfortunately, an animal goes feral. You usually blame the animal. You don't blame what riled up the animal.
It was kind of funny. Didn't this event kind of retcon the Omniverse, where it basically said the Omniverse was a lie?
To a degree, I looked at it this way: it was not a populated Omniverse.
Mm-hmm.
So it had the structure for an Omniverse, but it was not populated yet. Dark Crisis, I will agree that because that helped out John. And I think the last few issues of Tom Taylor's book also helped.
Yeah, a little bit. It's just the issue with the Tom Taylor book is that it took too long to get to the point, and that kind of burned a lot of
agree. Now,
it burned a lot of favor.
Would you agree, though, that had they not rushed the kissing, getting together with Jay because of editorial, do you think he would have handled it better?
I think to a degree, yes, because it did seem like. But I think
he would have built it up.
I think that would have been better as the last thing to happen in this current series.
Yes, which I think is what his plan was. I think that kiss they had at the end of at least the main arc, not the Super Kal-El return stuff, just the main arc.
Yeah,
I think that was always they're supposed to be their first kiss, not their second big kiss.
Yeah, because if they did that, I think it would have been less like, oh my gosh.
They're forcing it down our throats. But at least Taylor's honest about it, saying, yes, no, I didn't want it to be that soon.
Yeah, because he's good enough of a writer to know that's very heavy-handed on that.
Even he would have to know. I mean, granted, when it's his own political views, he'll be like, oh no, my views are always right. But as far as actually story writing, even he's like, no, you don't just do it within issue 5.
Exactly. Another story that I think is a good Superman story for a moment in it is Flashpoint Beyond, because when when you find out the reason Superman was sent to Earth, and then he still wants to fight against the Kryptonians, and when Batman asks him why, he goes, because the people of this Earth are worth defending. And I'm like, okay, that's Superman in any universe. He's the one person in the Flashpoint universe that is pretty much exactly like they are in the main universe.
Better than he was in the main Flashpoint universe where he just took off and then showed up at the end.
Yeah, I know. It's like, okay, Superman. But in his defense, he
just got out.
Yeah, so I can't really blame him for that.
Right. So I'm trying to think of another one. There's so many stories. So many. Godfall. Superman Godfall.
Ooh, yes.
I love that one. I mean, is it perfect? No. But I love the stuff with Lila. I like how it's basically a retelling of the Superman Returns to Krypton story of the original one. But in this case, though, it's Kandor. And this was back when it was the alien bottled city of Kandor, not the Kryptonian bottled city of Kandor. Although they do make it kind of iffy. Like, are there Kryptonians on this planet in this bottle now? Are there not? I gotta say, that was really confusing how they handled it. But the whole story was this whole idea of people who worship Superman because they think he's a god when he's not. He's just a man. He's flawed.
Plus, it's Michael Turner's art. So
no. No, it was Talon Caldwell's art. Michael Turner did the covers. No, he did the covers and the design. Caldwell was one of the people from Aspen that Turner had done. So he was matching Turner's style, but it was but all Turner did was the covers, the designs, and the plot.
Okay.
Yeah, and the covers. But I love that one. Yeah. Oh, Majestic. When Majestic came to the DC universe, I love that as well, because especially the scene in the diner in the Majestic miniseries where Superman, shows up to meet him. They talk, and he calls out, without being nasty about it, he calls out Majestic's flaw, saying, "You're an on all the time hero, and I think you don't have the human perspective. Look at me, I take time out to do it. You think I need this perspective? Couldn't hurt."
Yeah, exactly.
But he's being respectful to him. It's like, the guy's stuck here. He wants to get home. His views are clashing, but it's not his fault entirely.
My other favorite Superman story is the Superman Earth 1 series, because I think that's that's a great way.
It has one of the weaker endings, though, because it's way too open-ended, but I love that overall series. You know what I mean? Like that. Like Jeff Johns' Batman Earth 1, perfect ending. It can close the door, but it leaves enough wiggle room to open it up. Wonder Woman Earth 1, completely closed ending. Yeah,
that's ending.
But Superman, way too open-ended.
Plus the fact that if DC was trying to make us think that these books exist in one continuity, Wonder Woman Earth 1 kind of shoots that down real fast.
I would say the first book and a half of Wonder Woman Earth 1 can fit.
Yeah.
Once all the stuff was Dr. Psycho happened, it's no longer fits.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
but yeah, the Superman one, I agree. JMS gets it, although I do think that was a bit of a blueprint for Man of Steel. It's the first Superman origin that had a big alien invasion happen in it that led him to putting on the outfit, and I'm not a fan of that.
All right.
I personally feel like Superman should deal with smaller crooks, like in Secret Origins, dealing with Parasite and then Metallo.
Yeah. Which is why I think that in the new Superman movie, that's what they should do. Don't do this massive.
That was the problem. That was the problem Man of Steel had. You gave a big, huge spectacle that led to, Super. There's a reason why Zod was the second villain in the Reeves movie, not the first. Because you can't open up with him introducing himself to the world by fighting off an invasion.
Yeah, true. I get why they did that, because they were thinking, don't worry about that, because we're trying to establish a universe.
And again, I can accept it was Earth 1 still. Earth 1 still made it work.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, oh, geez.
Time out. My parents are here. I'm going to be heading back. I'm not leaving for good. I will be back. So, all
right.
I will be back.
All right, I'll keep us talking. But yeah, so the great thing about the Earth 1 series is, well, a lot of things, is that they essentially distill down a lot of the a lot of the Superman lore that you would expect to be in a Superman book, but did it in a way where it was like, I mean, what's the word? Where it was essentially like, where it was easy to understand, because a lot of Superman stuff is kind of zany and at some points hard to understand, but this book perfectly distilled it in there. Plus the fact you had amazing action scenes drawn by Shane Davis, where like Superman is battling the alien that has the vendetta against Kryptonians. I forget his name, but that's just me. And it's one of those things where I'm reading it, and I'm like, I get what Robert was saying, is that, yeah, this was very much the blueprint for Man of Steel, because you can get, you see very much the Man of Steel story beats. So the other thing that I definitely like about Earth 1 is the introduction, the way that it just organically introduces all these villains, because you see Parasite is just essentially a criminal that got exposed to some like technology. They show his origin stuff. It's really, really cool how they do that. And then also balances Clark Kent's like regular dudeness, if you will. In other words, it balances Clark Kent being a regular guy as in addition to being a superhero. So that's what I like. And then in terms of, yeah, and there's a Man of Steel. You guys know I love the Man of Steel movie, and I get what Robert says, because yeah, to a certain degree, if it's like the first Superman movie, because at this point we thought it was just going to be a Superman trilogy. I get that starting off with like Zod and a massive Kryptonian invasion, like makes it does seem kind of like, why are you doing this? Because you could save this for a third movie. I get it, but to me, I think it just makes more sense for what you want to do, because the reason why you start with such a big thing is because then you can establish the what's the word? Then you can use that battle to establish the other movies, because that's what they did in BVS essentially when they went to BVS, when they were forced to go to BVS. Let me put it that way, because they used the destruction from the battle to essentially shape the public's perception of Superman, because that's 100% what would happen. And then you have with Batman, you see this is why Batman would have a sort of animosity towards Superman at first. And I know people are going to say, why do Batman and Superman always have to fight their best friends? It's because it's popular. Because after Dark Knight Returns, it got mega popular for Superman and Batman to fight when they first meet. That's just standard precedent. It's always going to be that way. That's it. So that's just really why they do it, why they do a lot of these things, why a lot of modern Superman movies have like, they think he could be evil or he could turn evil at any moment. Because I got news for you, that's popular. Because they're looking at, okay, The Boys is popular, they have an evil as Superman. We can make Superman totally evil, so let's make people fear him turning evil. That's why they do it, because it's popular with the general audience. So that's why I think they go specifically toward that, like that line of thinking, in terms of like, in terms of why there's always like, and he could turn evil. So why the evil Superman story has kind of been played for a long time, like a really, 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 really long time. It's just because it's popular. And then another Superman story, I'm going to talk about this again with Robert, that I'm going to talk about, is Superman Wonder Woman from the New 52. Because it really establishes it, because really the major the major reason why it's a great Superman story is because it essentially gets down to, with that interaction with Batman. And he goes, Clark, there's a reason why I've always felt relatively comfortable working with you. Because no matter what, you may be this god, you may be this invincible being, but you will always see mankind as your home team. You weren't born here, but you were raised here. You will always see mankind as your home team. And I'm like, yeah, that 100% is Superman. No matter what, It's like even in Man of Steel at the end, he goes, "I grew up in Kansas, General. I'm about as American as you can get." So there you go. That's where I really think that book shines as a Superman story. Now it also shines as a Wonder Woman story, but I've reviewed that on the channel. I may revisit that. But that's my point. Is when you get down to that storyline, it gets why Superman works and why he always wants to protect us. Because yeah, because when you look into it, Clark arrived here as a baby. He doesn't remember Krypton. Or if he remembers it, he remembers brief flashes. Of course, he would be more attached to the world he grew up in. It's like essentially if I was born in like another country, I moved to the United States, and then I grew up in the United States all my life. That's it. You only feel like, I guess, loyalty to the place where you were raised from a very young age. So that's ultimately why I think that storyline, no matter how you think about the Superman Wonder Woman pairing, no matter what, that ultimately, that one interaction with Batman in that book perfectly gets why the Superman character in a time when, because remember, the new 52 Superman was brash, he made mistakes, he was impulsive, not a lot of people were digging it. But then when you get to this storyline, I'm like, yeah, they get it. Another great Superman storyline is really anything in like Rebirth, particularly in the Peter J. Tomasi run, because you see Superman being a father, Superman raising his son. Because previous to that, we've never seen the story of Superman raising kids. And he has to be the John Kent to John Kent. He has to be Jonathan Kent to his son, essentially, teaching him how to be a superhero, teaching him how to properly use his powers. It's very compelling, and it's one of those things that I very much enjoy about that storyline, like completely. It's amazing. Plus the fact you have the kid John Kent. I have to say that for Tevia, because I know he'll put that in there as his favorite Superman storyline, and I have to do that. Another one that I like is probably, I would have to say, would have to be, honestly, Superman Sacrifice, because in that one, that's the one where he's dealing with having like multiple, like that's the one where he's being mind controlled by Maxwell Lord, and then at the same time, he's dealing with like all these memory flashbacks. He's dealing with all that. And Robert's back. What's up, dude?
Not too bad. Sorry I had to pop off like that.
So good. I was talking about my other favorite Superman storyline, no matter how you feel about the pairing, is Superman Wonder Woman from the New 52, because there's this interaction with Batman that I think is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Batman tells Superman, Clark, there's a reason why I've always felt relatively safe working with you. It's because no matter what, you may have all these god powers and be an alien from another planet, but you will always see mankind as your home team. And I think that perfectly gets why Superman will always choose us over even Krypton, because ultimately...
Oh, yeah, and we've seen that. Krypton proved it.
Ultimately, it's because, well, let me put it this way, it's the exact same thing as like if you were born in another country, moved to the United States as a baby, and then grew up in the United States. Of course, you're going to be more loyal to the United States because you were born, because you were essentially raised here. This is the only home you've ever known.
Know until, unlike pre-crisis, where he knew and he had super recollection to recall even as a baby everything that happened there. In post-crisis, he had no idea until he was a teenager, which is always my preferred one. That's why I'll be honest, that's why I never fully care for pre-crisis Superman, because he's Superman first, Clark Kent is a disguise. With some exceptions.
Yeah, exactly. Then my other favorite one that I was saying was Superman Sacrifice, which is essentially dealing with the Maxwell Lord mind control, because I like seeing Superman that vulnerable, because when you're dealing with someone as invincible as Superman, you have to figure out...
It took years of whittling him away, not just... Nowadays, writers would have a beat.
Yeah, because here's the thing. When you have a being as powerful as Superman, you have to figure out some ways to like make him vulnerable so you have a compelling story. So it's not like this invincible god dealing with everything. And that does it. You attack his mentality. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What's another one of your favorite Superman stories?
Warworld Saga.
Heck yeah. So Superman as a gladiator? Hell yeah.
Yes, that definitely would have been it. That was definitely a big one.
I want that as a movie down the line, please.
Not
or at least
right
Dealing
away.
Mongol. Not
exactly.
right away, but I'm saying down the line.
Exactly. But Phil Kane Johnson, one of the best runs, especially one of the biggest mea culpas after Bendis' atrocious run.
Yeah.
There was only one moment in Bendis' run I will always love.
What?
When Perry found out.
Yeah, I like that.
I will give Bendis that.
No dialogue. It's just...
And even he walks up and just hugs him.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that I'll give you that. That was pretty nice.
Makes the moment in 1050 even more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's like nearly kills him.
Yeah, I'm like, it's kind of funny. I love how whenever I talk to Superman fans, I have yet to find anyone that was like, oh, I love the Bendis Superman run.
But again, I do love that moment. That is my favorite
moment. That's fine. There are certain moments in it that I'm sure...
He's still better. I would say, though, Bendis is still better than Chuck Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Austin's run was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
He was having Superman crack jokes, and he was acting more like Connor. And Connor was acting more like Superman.
Okay. That makes no sense.
You check out my Pro Teacher's Noob on the Chuck Austin Action Comics, right? And you'll see what I mean. It is bad. Like, Bendis understood Superman better than Chuck Austin did.
Mm-hmm. And that says a lot because arguably he didn't really understand the character that much.
But yeah, he still understood him better than some of the other characters he did in that run. I will say that he understood better than Lois.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
And giving her a brother, did he not realize? And then say, wait, then why the hell did Sam Lane treat and still try to look at Lois and Lana like boys if he had a son well before them from an affair?
Yeah.
Plus and he knew about the son. He knew about the son.
Plus the fact when Bendis had it where Lois was home for months after journeying with John and didn't tell Clark because she wanted to like basically find herself. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude.
In concept, not a bad idea. In concept, in execution, horrible.
Yeah, I'm like, plus, do we really need another writer revisiting why Krypton blew up and changing the ways it blew up? I'm like, no.
It clashes with everything done with Jor-El.
Don't even get me started on Jor-El. Oh, God.
It clashes. I was like, wait, Manhattan helped them. Nothing else happened. Now you're claiming, it didn't happen.
And also, so you're going to have Superman. So Jor-El shows up. And goes, I want to take your son on a journey throughout the multiverse to find himself.
Wait, can I bring this up?
Yeah.
Why, at being around 10 years old, does John Kent have a porn stash?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, don't look at my drawer. In fact, okay, never mind, drawer's taken care of. I'm like, how old is he? How old is he? Okay,
plus, here's the thing, though. Your father's Superman. You ain't hiding anything from him.
Yep. But now I would say, you know what I know is my favorite book and a half of a 3-book miniseries that I adore? Superman Year One.
Oh, yes.
The first book and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect Superman origin.
Mm-hmm.
The second book and a half, complete train wreck.
Mm-hmm. Another story that actually started, I just got this in, is the John Byrne Man of Steel.
Oh, yes, that is good, except for Lois. Lois is a... She is a...
Arguably, she kind of always was.
Oh, no. Until until Byrne left, and then she finally got better. Because Byrne had it be, he scooped her. She's holding a grudge. Okay, hold the grudge for 5 years?
I know. But what's cool about this is that you definitely get Man of Steel-y vibes from this in terms of like, okay, Krypton blew up, they sent him to Earth, they know what Earth is kind of like, and then the ship comes in, then immediately like time jumps to Clark as like an adult, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like this.
They did the same thing in Birthright, which I love. That's another one I like. Birthright, I like. There's again, I have problems with it, but for the most part, it's a good origin.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of funny is that Superman's origin is the one that's been like redone in
The
a
funny thing,
lot of.
it's only more recently that's been redone. That's the funny
Mhm.
thing. It was like Man of Steel was the origin for years until Birthright. Then you have Birthright. Then you have Secret Origin. Then you have Earth One.
Yeah.
Then you had the New 52.
Another one, For Tomorrow by Azzarello. I like that run a lot.
My problem is Azzarello is one of those who looks at Superman's a real guy. He's an alien. That was when Superman was way too alien acting. He had to way
True.
too much like a cold, doesn't care. And again, it's the whole notion of Superman's the real guy, which Azzarello clearly has shown time and again. He's one of those who feels like, oh no, he's Superman. He's Kal-El. Clark Kent. Because even had that moment where he's talking to the robot of Clark Kent and saying like, she loves you. She doesn't like me. I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
One of the best moments, though, was Lois and Clark is when he picks her up. That Jim Lee artwork on all that.
Jim Lee artwork, so you can't pass that.
And her naked, wrapped up in there, in the cave. I'm like, oh.
You can't bash some Jim Lee art, my friend. Oh my god.
One of the worst Zods.
The Zod design is kind of funky. I'll give you that one.
That, but out of nowhere, we have no setup for him, and we never see this version again. Makes zero sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I'm like, okay.
I think this is from another dimension, and because the Phantom Zone has always been stated to be between, like it's a universal thing, a multiversal thing. So I think he could have been a Zod from another Earth. That's my only explanation.
So as we wrap up, I just want to add. So
already, sorry, I'm so sorry. I had to leave for a lot of it.
No, it's okay. Actually, you know what? I talked to. Give me like two more of your favorites.
That's what I was. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. Let me look around. Oh, Emperor Joker.
Oh yes.
That is so perfect about Superman. The fact that no matter what Joker does, he can't break him. He can't break. He broke Batman, but he couldn't break Superman.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Except if it's injustice. Well,
yeah, but I'm talking about this. He was God powers.
Yeah.
And another one. Ooh. I'm looking at what I have up here. What else? Oh, the Superman story that it was like one of the final arcs during Infinite Crisis. The one that had him and Earth's 2 Superman swap places.
Oh, really?
So we got to see how each of them would act with their own ideals on the other's world. Earth's 2 Superman would be way too hard-fisted, because he's like, I know what's going to happen. So, like, fighting Doomsday, he didn't. Now, because here's the thing I say about was Doomsday. I think if Lois had said Doomsday was getting up, he would have gone up. He would have been drained, but he would have gone up still. Once he found out that she was dead, he let himself die. So I think so. In this case, that happens. He still gets up feeling like, no, I'm not going to be a symbol of the death and everything. Or I'm going to team up with Batman early on, and we're going to stop Lex Luthor together. But it ends up being a case where we're going to send all these evildoers who are more villainous to the Phantom Zone and stuff. Whereas Earth's 1 Superman, he takes it more upon himself. He tries to be the inspiration on an Earth that basically takes him for granted and feels like he's basically like, I'm going to do this stuff and hopefully inspire new heroes. But then it's like, you're taking care of everything. What do you need us for?
Speaking of Infinite Crisis, my favorite Superman moment in that book was when he's talking to the Earth 2 Superman, and he goes,
"A perfect world doesn't need a Superman."
Exactly.
The world, it never was.
Yeah, it never was perfect. Why isn't he? If it was perfect, it would need you.
Exactly. And that's when he realized it, because he kept thinking Earth 2 was the one other Superman 78.
Ooh. Oh yeah.
That's
I haven't read that.
Oh, you will love it.
That's the comic version of Reeves, right? Reeves.
Yes, but the continuation. Although it is set between 2 and 3. All right, and so it's not replacing 3 because it still leads into 3.
Yeah. So I've heard that's good, and I really want to check that out. And didn't DC recently acknowledge that and Batman 89 are on the same Earth?
On Earth 789.
I knew it. I called it.
Oh, any other? Oh, Superman speeding bullets.
Oh, of course.
What if Superman was and if young Kal-El Landon was raised by the Waynes?
Yeah. My problem with those Elseworlds is that, okay, so because Batman is essentially Batman becomes these other heroes, his rogues become these other characters.
The worst one was the Green in Darkest Night.
Yeah. When
that's
he
the worst
Sinestro,
one because Sinestro, because he goes to Joe Chill, takes his mind, and then somehow that makes him the Joker, and then he makes Two-Face and all that, and that was the worst. But I think Superman speeding bullets handled it better with Lex becoming Joker and all that.
Yeah,
that was handled better. It's a very Tim Burton-esque Gotham.
Yeah.
Also, Red Sun.
Oh yes. Oh,
that's also a but you know what? I would say was one of the worst Elseworlds.
What?
True Brit.
I've never read that one.
Oh, what if he landed in the UK and it's a farcical comedy? And John Cleese was involved, but he wasn't the main writer with it. And you would expect better from him, but yeah, it is so. I did another Pro Teacher Noob on there, and you'll see it. It's like, it is so. Last Family of Krypton.
Ooh.
What if Jor-El and Laura came with him?
That's actually an interesting. I'm surprised they haven't done more with that, because that seemed like it'd be. They actually kind of did.
Harry Bates did it.
Yeah, and they actually kind of did. Dark Knights of Steel.
Oh, okay. I gotta ask you about that one. Do you think that's Martian Manhunter
as Jor-El?
Or the others? He's constantly changing his form, the shapeshift, because it's clear it's shapeshifter. There's times where these characters are acting way too out of character, and then when they kill people, just out of the blue.
Let me put it this way: it's very Tom Taylor to retcon that this was a shapeshifter the entire time.
But I think it's so obvious because you have moments like where Kara kills, but then everyone's like, "That doesn't sound like her at all."
Yeah, I think you may be onto something there.
I think it's John, Martian Manhunter. I think that's who it is. He's taking their form. He has their abilities,
and we know that's the way John works.
Exactly.
So on that note, Robert, it was a pleasure having you on the show to talk Superman. We may disagree on a lot of stuff with the Snyderverse, but we definitely agree on how awesome Superman is as a character. So I'll take it.
I would say we can at least agree with the Snyderverse that, again, it is the whole starting with an invasion, good spectacle, not a good starting point for Superman.
However, I said this while you were off, is that I get if you're trying to set up a world that would be distrustful of Superman, I get why they went with a Kryptonian invasion, because you have in BVS carrying over the world's like dealing with all the destruction from Metropolis, and then that's one of the motivations for Batman. I get that, but again, I agree with you to a certain degree. I personally would not have gone with a full-scale Kryptonian invasion. You could have done a small scale with like
three of them, maybe three, but not a whole invasion.
A full invasion,
not trying to redo the entire, landscape of the planet. None of that. And also, don't railroad Superman having to kill within his first year.
I was fine with that. So
not me personally, but you know where I stand on that.
Yeah. That's fine. But yeah, it's like I get it's a little bit this way. Story wise, I get why they went that way.
Story wise, I get it, but I think that was the problem.
Yeah, they could have like changed the story a little bit to like,
and also, Paul Kent, horrible father. Jor-El, god tier father. Hated that. Well, I do not like the sacrifice. I do not like the sacrifice Paul Kent being a good father. So you can make the alien daddy be the real father.
Yeah, that whole tornado scene. I'll agree with you. There was a better way you could have done that.
Oh, there was a better way you could have done that, but also the way he raised him by saying, you should keep yourself secret until you're ready, but you're never going to be ready. Never be ready. It's like, that's basically what Paul Kent was saying. Basically, he was giving him mixed signals.
And then when you have in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he goes, fly, son, it's time.
It's like, that's too late.
Yeah, but all right.
Guys, you gotta be honest. That's too late because you had nothing to remind you of that. You had that brief bit in BVS, but it's like, what was that story about?
it was kind of to like inspire Clark and tell him, hey, listen, you have to like find a part of the world to ground yourself in, and then that was Lois Lane, and I get that. But on that note, yeah.
We can talk forever.
We'll talk about that's another episode to do. But it was a pleasure having you on. I'm glad that we share a lot of the same favorite Superman storylines, because he's one of those characters that DC doesn't do enough with, really, because they seem to be focused purely on Batman. But
that's why I'm glad that you're having everyone. Gunn, Zaslav, all of them are saying no. And the Superman right, the fact that this is the first time we're having Superman be the big tier person since Rebirth.
And in Dawn of DCU, the Batman stuff doesn't start until 6 months after the initiative starts, meaning Superman is the first book you start with.
Exactly. And like I said, the same thing applies to with like since Rebirth. Rebirth was the last time we had that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I gotta go. I got a premiere going at this very moment, so.
I'll see you, dude. On that note, everyone, stay heroic, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.